Right, hello SF fans and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a couple of science fiction reads for you, books that I've read in the last, month now. Both of these, I've read a couple of weeks ago or more. So if the if my memory's a bit hazy, you'll have to bear with me. Right, let's kick off. Right, the first book is Theatre of the Timesmiths by Garry, Kilworth. You don't see this around too often. I mean, I was unaware of it until a couple of weeks ago. And the basic setup here is we have a place called First City, which is a totalitarian city that it's not quite in 1984 league, but it's more like say V for Vendetta, and it's peculiar in as much as it's surrounded by ice. If you can imagine a cone turned upside down and the top clipped off, that's more or less the shape of it. Now, the city is ruled by, as I say, a totalitarian empire, and at the middle of this is a computer that can talk to people, quite an intelligent computer, because it runs the whole place. It keeps everything working. Now, our protagonist is Morag Mackenzie. She is a mind prostitute. In other words, she gives pleasure with the mind rather than the body. And she meets up with a guy called Ben, who becomes her lover. And they become dissidents, so enemies of the state. They're branded as enemies of the state. And now, a lot of people have tried to escape through the hole in the top. Nobody succeeded, but Ben and Morag get the chance to do this. So they take this balloon up and they get right to the top, but the crosswinds stop them from getting out of the top. But she sees over the top what seemed like a marble landscape. Anyway, the balloon comes down, they get captured, and she is arrested by the big heavy. Can't remember his name offhand, but the computer calls her and the heavy in and kills the heavy, much to Morag's surprise. In the meantime, Ben is trapped in a dungeon, maze type dungeon. But she manages to rescue him, and she actually becomes the chief of the city because the computer is dying. She's nominated as the next big ruler, if you like. Now the computer eventually dies, and the ice melts. So everybody's free. Now, when they get free, they walk outside, and they see in the distance another city, which is called Second City. And eventually they find another city, or guess it, Third City. Anyway, in Second City, they decide that they must be the cause of their grief and their ills of the past, however long it's been. So they go to invade them. Morag gets an army, sets off to invade them, but they find they're very peaceful people. Finally, they get to the Third City, and they're sort of populated by monsters, sort of ogres and stuff like this. And eventually, they sort of band together with the Second City, and it transpires that Morag is a timesmith. And we find out exactly what a timesmith can do. And that's all I'm able to tell you without spoiling the whole ending. But yeah, that's the basic setup of the book. I mean, there is a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more characters, but that's the basics of it without going too deeply in. Right, so to say that I came to this in a roundabout way because I was on one of my frequent visits to the Outlaw bookseller, and he mentioned Garry Kilworth, and the name must have sort of stayed floating around in my brain somewhere. And I actually saw his name on the list of books from somebody that I was going to buy from. And then I noticed the title, Theatre of Timesmith. I thought, oh, what a great title that is. Love that. So I had to buy it. And when I got it, I read the little synopsis on the back and decided that, yeah, I'm going to read that. Now, my impressions of the book. Well, first of all, it was interesting that the main protagonist was a very strong female character, written by a man, which is, well, it's unusual in my experience, but I mean, it has happened, but you don't get many of them. I found the whole setup of the first city to be rather unique, and it's well written as well. As I say, I've never heard of the guy before, Garry Kilworth, until the Outlaw bookseller mentioned him. By the way, if you're interested in the more academic side of science fiction or even publishing, go and see Stephen at say the Outlaw bookseller. It's easy enough to find on if you put a search in, and yeah, he's got a very interesting site over there. Lots of good stuff. And yeah, I found the setup very interesting, and the story unfolds in a kind of sensible arc. There's nothing too outrageous with it, and yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say than that, other than I enjoyed it. For an unknown author, unknown book, very very often happens. There's not there's not too much villainy in there. As I say, there's this character whose name I can't remember, and there's a couple of more characters in there that seem to be on the villainous side. But yeah, I mean, even taking that into consideration, it's still a good sort of romp. I wouldn't say it's a space opera by any means, but it's a good science fiction romp, if you like. On my usual scale, sorry, I've got another frog here. Excuse me. On my usual scale of 1 to 10, with 5 being average, I'll give that an 8. Definitely, no problem. Okie dokie. Right, now we've got Barry Malzberg and overlay. Right. The concept of this is that the government of the galaxy decide that the Earth is sort of dangerous and insane and needs dealing with, and they task our narrator to deal with the problem. So, for some reason, he decides that he will deal with the problem by picking 4 people who are inveterate gamblers on the horse racing, and he is invisible to them, but he can enter their minds and manipulate them in various ways. Now we've got Simmons, we've got a horse trainer called Tony who bets on his own horses. We've got another chap called Gardner, and a 73-year-old lady called Mary. Now, these have all got their own problems, family-wise and work-wise and what have you. But, they're all losers, basically. They just can't win at the horse racing. They're just, just sad people, basically. And our narrator, the alien from the Bureau, by the way, I forgot to mention that, he decides that he's going to give them all bad tips and sort of send them spiralling into kind of despair. And the book ends with an explosive ending, shall we say. And that's all I'm going to say about that one. Now, I must admit, I always thought, my impressions, by the way, I always thought that Barry Malzberg was a complete miserabilist. But I found a lot of this book quite amusing, actually. Maybe it's just me. And I, just a little side story here. Back in the 1970s, I used to attend a non-vocational course at a university. It was very laid back. It was very informal. And one week I was asked to do a talk on my favourite author, Harlan Ellison. And there was a chap at the end, he said, I don't like Harlan Ellison because I think the words he used was abrasive and, what was the other word he used? Downbeat. That was it, abrasive and downbeat. Now next week, as luck would have it, he gave a talk. And the subject of his talk was Barry Malzberg. I thought, now there's an irony for you. If I took anything from this book, it was a very good knowledge of American horse racing and gambling, because the book just deals with that, basically. I mean, it could be a mainstream novel, but for our alien narrator and the job that he's tasked with, I must admit I didn't quite get the point of the book. Obviously, it was set in 1978 when, there was all sorts of things going on in the USA. I assume he was railing against, the Vietnam War or social conditions, social security, whatever, because one of these characters, he works for the Social Security, or their version of it anyway, Americans' version of it. I must admit I was scratching my head at points because I didn't quite realise what our narrator was trying to do with these four losers. So from that point of view, I found it a little bit strange. It's the first Malzberg I've read. Malzberg, is it Malzberg? I was prepared to give it a bit of leeway, but it's one of those books where I didn't sort of like dislike it, but I just couldn't get to the bottom of it. So on that basis, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 5 being average, maybe a 6. So it was certainly above average, no doubt about that. But couldn't quite raise it to 7 because I just didn't get it really. That was my 2 recent-ish book reads. I hope you got some decent information from that. I'll be along very, very quickly with my book pickups for late August. Where are we now? September, yeah. Late August. And I've got quite a few of those to get through, but that'll be very, very quickly after this one. So expect to see me in stereo if you can stand it. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Please comment more, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.